Recording has started, and I'm going to have to take off my mask, but I wanted to show off my Black Lives Matter mask because it's by the same artist who did my t-shirt, which is Protect and Respect Planet Earth.
Right on.
They're both by Jenny Hahn, my friend who is in the Kansas City area.
And a great artist.
Yes, I am very fond of her work. So I had to share that. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Reverend Mike and Salaam, to another exciting episode of Thoughts on Talks.
It's been so long.
I know, it feels like a long time.
And it's been a while.
The world has changed.
A lot of things have changed.
Yes. So we have had the elections at this point. Mm-hmm. The news media have announced what is the careful wording that they put? Like they've a projected winner or
winner, yes.
Very president-elect.
Yes, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have had their speeches and the celebration with fireworks. Mm-hmm. And then, as I was mentioning to the two of you off the air, I watched Van Jones, who many people saw weeping openly the morning that Joe Biden's status as the president-elect was called.
Yeah, Reverend Mike had sent me the video, text me the video on Saturday.
Yeah. So
that's fine.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I saw the video, as well, and I will say this, briefly. Okay. In our culture, it is, and for good reason, it's frowned upon for Black men to show emotion outside of our safe spaces. Because of what it does is it puts this notion out there that there's blood in the water, that you're weak, and because we've been wired to withstand just so much.
Yeah.
It's not as at first. Full disclosure, I was like, why is the brother on here like just bawling his eyes out, But as I thought about it, and I talked to my wife about it, and she gave me this insight. She said that, far be it from us that we know and understand like the level of emotional capital that's put into daily reporting every day. So this is to the Van Joneses, this is to the Don Lemons, this is to the Breonna Keelers, this is to the Jake Tapper, I think his name is. So all those folks they put a lot of emotional capital into the ebbs and flows and the opposite ends of this pendulum of political reporting.
Right.
And so with that said, when she said that, I said, okay, let me give the brother a little bit of break. But I would admit there are many of us brothers, in our camp who was like, hey, if you need to show the crowd, do it with us, because if you do it out there, it's humiliating, it's emasculating, and things like that. So I do see those the two-sided, the aspect of it. So on one hand, I completely get why he did it. On the other hand, it's part of being in alignment with our cultural norms. I wish that if he was if he had a speaking engagement, let's say at the Lulu Washington Dance Theater over on Washington, where it's in our community, where mostly it's going to be us. Space. Over there, it would have been a safe space to which to do that.
Right.
Like when I met Michael Eric Dyson at that same venue, he felt safe. And he was a lot more frank and a lot more realer, as we say, keep it a buck, keep it 1,000. He was all of that when we saw him, so it was, I guess it was just as Van Jones just being authentic and being who he is, but there are some, things with that where it's like, okay, we can't do this when we're literally at war. And And when I say that, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's thinking, "Oh, there is that violence talk." And it's not that. I mean, we've been had acts of violence perpetrated against us, since we set soles of our feet on these shores,
Right.
and just to see, him, in that way, and also in the name of the fact that today is Veterans Day, and
Mhm.
even though we're not talking heartily, Happy Veterans Day to my older brother and older sister, yeah, but
Mhm.
in light of the veterans, these folks, men and women, have been at war. Even though, I mean, we've all seen Full Metal Jacket. It's a cult classic, right? And we've
Mhm.
seen, I forgot the sergeant's name, who was just relentless on the new cadets, who were coming through. And but as relentless as they were, as hardwired as those soldiers were, like, no sir, no sir, this that, and the other. But when you get in battle, when those soldiers were shipped off to Vietnam, and you in Ia Drang, you in Da Nang, you in Khe Sanh, you in Hamburger Hill, you're in Saigon, you're flying over Hanoi, you're flying over Haiphong. If you get in battle in Vietnam, you're gonna see some shit that's gonna make you just lose it. You know what I
Right.
mean? And we have to allow, just as the same in the same vein that emotional spectrum is allowed for a weeping soldier. Black people, but men, women, and children, have been weeping soldiers in this continent, in the Western Hemisphere, for over almost 5 centuries.
Yeah.
So we should be not only. Well, I mean, I'm sure there are others out there who are allies of us, will give us that emotional leeway, the emotional provision, but part of our cultural norm, and maybe this is a continuum of it, changing and evolving, because our cultural norms were robbed from us when we got here, that we will allow ourselves, regardless of the space, to
Mhm.
grieve, to, if you will, exhale, even though the
Mhm.
battle is just beginning now that Trump
Yes.
is gone. I just like to see us keep the same energy, up, you know, um, and continue the fight. I really hope, for his sake, that Ice Cube is still, about this life, that he still is gonna keep riding for it. If I know him and know that what his work is about, I have supreme confidence that he'll do just that, in
Mhm.
spite of the piling on and the crapping on that he's has been getting, not from only from outsiders, but even our own. We attacked him. It was saying, "Well, you need to stay in your lane." Even Kamala attacked him. When she was on Angela Rye's podcast, yeah,
Hmm.
and said, "Well, some folks need to stay in their lane." And this was after it initially became known that the contract with Black America was out there. So with the piling on that he received, okay, and then you start asking some of us, and you all have probably have seen, if you're not too busy. I've been taking a lot of arrows just for being critically, analytical and thinking. Not a fan, but just an observer. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so, like when they say, well, Ice Cube got played politically, this, that, and the other. But okay, but hold on, time out. But we don't say anything when black folks are being played politically by Democrats either. I mean, like, I've heard
Hmm.
Hillary Clinton say, "Eyes in no ways tired." Come on, I mean, like, what black mama did you grow up under? I mean, like, I know that she was a roommate of Grant Hill's mother, like in
Mhm.
college, with things like that. But for her to say that, for her to
Did she
act like
say
she
it
had,
like that though? Did
she
she say
sure did.
eyes? Wow.
Eyes in no ways tired.
Wow.
This is Hillary talking. Then
Okay.
she goes, she does the antics and the play on Beyonce. I got hot sauce in my bag. Okay, then when and who did she learn it from? I mean, hell, in the same bedroom, at least so we think, unless a business relationship notwithstanding, Bill Clinton is right there laying next to her, so we think, and he blew a saxophone on Arsenio. I mean, we know Clinton could sell water to a well, a snake oil salesman, so like, there's so many examples of how the Democrats also and use clout with black people for political gain. I mean, when Barack's first term, he got up there and he pulled a Jay-Z, don't brush his shoulders off. Did that on camera. He get up there and sing Amazing Grace, get up there and slow dance and blow to Al Green, and lyric for lyric. I mean, so we've seen this, happen on the Democratic side, but there's no issue. And I said this to say, are we going to issue pandering altogether, or are we just going to make it permissible on one side and not the other? Now, I do get that Trump had to go. I'd be the first to tell you his ass needed to go, and make no qualms about it. That, okay, you have to remove this existential threat. But I will say, while now that we had to select a lesser evil to get rid of a greater evil, we have to now have this come to Jesus moment within our own consciousness that say, okay, I had to select, I'm a good person, but I had to select a lesser evil to get rid of a greater evil. So let's just acknowledge that, as a form of, of healing personally, and then let that radiate, outward. You know what I mean? So, but
and only 8 days.
And only 8 days, and the jury's still out. I mean, that's why I said, well, okay, Biden and Kamala in, let them cook.
Right.
And then they come to find out that Stacey Abrams had registered 800,000 black people, to vote. Whether they were first-time voters, I'm assuming they were. She had to register them, but that's almost 1 million people who weren't registered to vote. Maybe some were felons. Maybe some just turned 18. I'm sure there are other factors there,
Or
but
maybe
in her program,
2 years.
in her organization that did that, she accepted $5 million from Michael Bloomberg and gave him a speaking part. Now I said, now wait a minute. Michael Bloomberg was the same fellow who did Stop and Frisk in New York. And before Stacey took that money and gave him the platform, Michael Bloomberg doubled down and defended his use of Stop and Frisk. So and it's fine. Stacey Abrams, it was okay for her to make a sit down across the negotiation table from an adversary of black people to make a deal for the betterment of black people, but we didn't give that same bandwidth to Ice Cube when he attempted to do the same thing. Actually, when they pulled up on him, and so it's I wish we were consistent in our analysis in that and understand and evaluate what the people are, the best interest that they have in their heart for us. Did they truly mean well? And I truly believe that Cube mean well, but he's just not as politically seasoned as Stacey Abrams was. And
Right.
neither were a slew of people who are going to the poll boxes. Many of the American electorate aren't politically seasoned either. And that's okay. But at least give people the bandwidth to do what they do, because Cube didn't need any empirical evidence. I mean, he's been black for damn near 50 something years. You know what I'm saying? So like, he's only speaking from a perspective of a black man in America who's tired of the bullshit. And he put forth an action. That's what we would encourage any politician to do.
Yeah.
I need to catch up with you, Salaam. Hold on.
Like eight issues there. So we can start back at the beginning.
I said I was going to be brief too, so my fault.
I wanted to give you, I just wanted to give another perspective, the old white guy perspective of Van Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way that I heard that, and I realize I'm not the same hard ass I was 20 years ago. What I took away from that was the depth of the black experience in America and how much behind it, and the emotion in that. And I think I don't mean that as entertainment, right? But rather, wow, here's a guy, really sharing the pain and his, and the fear for his children, and which is what prompted me to send it to you, because we were talking about that kind of stuff.
Well, I brought it up because my cousins, one in London, one in Sri Lanka, were checking in. Have you heard the result? Is the result in yet? Is Biden president? And so to express sort of my feelings of like relief, I sent them the Van Jones video, because I know Van Jones also started a bunch of organizations to, when Trump was elected, to try to shift people to understanding that love. He started the Love Army. Yeah. You can look it up, #Love Army. And he did revivals across the country to say love was the only way to get Trump out of office. But he also started, I think he's part of colorofchange.org, which is a political Green for All, and the Dream Corps. And so all of these are very democratic grassroots organizations to just lift all of society up.
And he worked with them worked with Trump on the First Step Act too, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
But then I looked up other things to send them about Van Jones in case they didn't know who he was. And I found him speaking at a Muslim Alliance event where he said, if you're not being treated equally, we're not equal in America. And I knew that my Muslim family would appreciate seeing that.
Yeah.
And then because I had watched these videos, it came up on YouTube. He did a TED Talk before the election talking about how it is actually possible that a rogue president could refuse to concede, and that there are things in place that could allow him to still take the presidency even after this stage. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is terrifying. And so he gave a list of organizations that are working.
That's called a coup d'etat.
Absolutely.
Exactly. But
and
it's
we only
legal.
think of it in other countries, but it's here too.
So I wrote down all the organizations, and I can paste them later. Color of Change is one of them. Sure. Of course, the ACLU. And there are several. But I thought, oh my gosh, our work isn't done. We may be leaning back and thinking, okay, it's over. We won. Get over it, which is what every side always says. And it also points out that there are loopholes and problems in the structure of the political structure that we use in our democracy. And that what we really need is somebody who is elected and who's willing to close those loopholes and create a system that works better, whether it's abolishing the electoral college system or
that I agree with,
or just, shifting it so that it makes more sense, something. But I was like, okay, we got more work to do.
Yeah.
Right. But, to Salaam's point, it really is, the threshold and not, it's a launching pad and not the landing strip.
Sure.
AOC had a big thing on that. And I think this is what you are expressing, your frustration with the Democratic Party as she was.
Yes.
In their refusal to move left. But I think if they had moved any further left, we would not have removed Trump, because
I agree. Yes.
It turns out he was far more popular than anyone that the Democrats would have believed. So clearly we aren't getting it.
Right.
So whatever's going on with the Republican electorate, we have to find a way to figure that out and get this other stuff done, and do it with probably an obstinate Senate.
Yes.
That isn't going to want to do jack. So
it's still a deadlock, I believe, isn't it? Or did they flip it blue already?
No,
in Georgia. Okay.
That I don't know. But Alaska went to Trump and the Republican senator. So they have 50 senators now.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. And for whatever reason, the electorate seems to like government that can't do anything. I don't know why, but there you go.
Yeah.
So the question is going to be, how to keep, and we've talked about this on our little blog site here, vlog, whatever we're doing, on how to keep that momentum going, because it is, I hate to say it, but without the blue wave that never showed up, except in the presidential, it's just going to be a grinder. And it's just
really,
it's going to have to be, that'll be easier to do out here in California, but still, it's, I don't know, man. It's, I'm glad I'm in ministry and not in politics.
Yeah.
I mean, California, I mean, there's nothing anyone can do. Even if they had a crayon that's going to turn California into a red state, it was going to be blue no matter what. But
still, I was a little depressed when I looked at the map of California to
when you
see
look at the counties. Absolutely. Even right in Santa Clarita, there's pockets of red folks up there. And we're not talking about Chief Massasoit either. But
bless you, Reverend Mike.
Bless you, buddy. Yeah, but on one case study I present that supports what you were saying, Malayna, about the abolishing the Electoral College. Let's use a case study of the good old state of Mississippi, and Mississippi, I mean, that's probably the blackest state in the union, I would venture to guess. But, that I think I forget the percentage, but it's got to be, if I did the question numbers, it got to be the blackest state in the union. For generations, you could not flip that state blue no matter what, no matter how many people went to the polls, how many black folks went to the poll in Mississippi. But yet it still showed up red, as well as the adjacent states like Louisiana, the boot, Texas is red, Alabama, red. Georgia might is flipping, blue, perhaps, and that's the first time that would have occurred since '92 when Clinton ran for the first time. And then you have all throughout the middle part of the country, and you just wonder, like, is the Electoral College even a solution at this point? I think removing it, or I don't even know if you can reform it without removing it, but I say put a moratorium on it at least till you find a system that truly works.
Right. But you're not going to do that with the current congressional makeup.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. I mean, it's like, the blue wins the executive seat, but if they don't get a majority, of Congress, they're going to fight like hell over every, bill that comes across, that table. It won't even make it to the desk.
I also wanted to, I wish I would have thought to look this up before we got on today, but there is you can look at all kinds of charts to look at distribution of the electorate. The ones that I have found the most interesting aren't the ones that paint the whole middle red and a whole state red, because the truth is that there are, blue and red strongholds, but the rest of the country, things are kind of pretty sprinkled in, like the lights on this background here on the our background, and you can actually see that there's a lot more purple. Right?
It is.
It is a lot more purple. Some places are a little more pink and some are a little more lavender. But
I think I finally closed the page I had open on my phone for election results.
I see. Finally, you said, huh?
Yeah, I had it open and I just kept checking it.
Right.
But and that's what I noticed. Like And I don't know if you can see at the outset, it does look like it's all in the middle, and then the edges are blue. But if
Arizona and Georgia are the surprises to me.
If you tap into any of those states, what I see is that the cities usually go blue and that the rural areas usually go red.
Absolutely.
And so I was thinking about how are the concerns different in those rural areas than in the cities? And the only thing I could think of was that cities, you have to work together with all different types of people a lot more. They have a little bit more of influx from international, people from other countries. And so you learn about people from other countries and you're friends with them or you work with them.
You have union presence in those cities.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look at Ohio, for instance. I mean, if you ran off a list of all the cities there, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton, Columbus, Akron, I mean, you can run off a tally of like 7 cities that all are democratic within its democratic within its
This is what Ohio looks like.
Exactly.
The blue spots are the cities.
Right. And you look at someone like a LeBron James, who's from there, who opened a school there, who's basically Ohio's native son. And that state still surprisingly went to Trump, and Ohio was traditionally one of the battleground states along with Pennsylvania.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
I think
it's pretty
to
fascinating.
answer your question, though, I think part of it is, I think there's an aspect to rural life where you just take care of your own stuff, right? Like, because people, I think, are more connected to they're not, but maybe one generation away from the farm.
Right.
And on the farm, when the tractor goes out, you don't call up, Tractors or Us, right? You
go get Cooter.
You break it down yourself. You figure out, okay, this part's broken. Let me go take this into town and see if I can find one.
Yes.
Right. And I had a guy that I used to work for. As a carpenter, he started working in Iowa, and he started working before circular saws. Right. So right after the war, if you were a young guy working in Iowa, your job would be using a handsaw to cut studs and parts and rafters. That would be your job all day long.
Wow.
That only works in cartoons.
but he said, the hardest people to make money off of were farmers. Because farmers could do it themselves. The only reason why they were hiring is they didn't have the time to do it.
Right.
And so if that has carried over, right? I mean, I'm talking 30 years ago. But
right.
But I do remember when I first got into the trades, a lot of guys came off the farm. Right? A lot of white guys, a lot of black guys were in construction and off the farm. And now that demographic, not so much, at least in the Southwest. So I don't know what's going on in the middle of the country. But so maybe that has something to do with it. It's a little more blue collar, kind of a forget about it attitude. We look after our own, but yet they don't have any problem taking farm subsidies. Right.
Well, and that's part of the thing too, is like,
is it run me mine?
I don't need no government. I don't need no government.
Right.
But run me my bread.
Right.
But the disconnect between
price of soybeans is, dropped. So buy my soybeans.
That disconnect between like the personality and what he supposedly represents and what actually happens.
Right.
And that's where it's like, but wait, well, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
I
So
just
somehow we have
that's
to
the part.
figure out how to reach that sensibility and then to
Mhm.
be open to the concerns that they have so that we can make whatever adjustments we need to make. And probably, I got to tell you, probably a lot of it is just finding ways to be able to get to know each other better, which is something else that we've talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just in building our neighborhoods, getting more, Black and Latin families into our little white enclaves. Right? And even if we have to subsidize that so that they can live, help them to live there, if that's what it takes. It's a huge undertaking. I just hope, and I think maybe this is where you're coming from, Salaam. I just hope we don't buckle under the enormity of the task ahead of us.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Well, we've got Kamala, who's mixed Black and South Asian.
South Asian, yes.
So I'm half South Asian. Kamala's half South Asian. I'm pretty excited about that. We got Joe Biden, who's got Irish family, just like Reverend Mike.
Yeah.
And so right here, Salaam, you've got like the stand-ins of Biden and Kamala.
Pretty much.
Here.
Pretty much.
It's like on that show Bull where they have like a test jury that has the same sort of demographics as the real jury, and they use that to predict what's going to happen. So just ask us. I mean, I'm not half Black, so I'm only half as useful as Kamala. But
Well, the other part I think too is that white folk are going to have to find within themselves a resiliency, and to find ways to stay out of, well, what about me?
And resist the urge to center themselves.
Yeah, well, because I just know for myself in all of these conversations, of course, and this is just in my own mind, is not true. Just organizationally and so forth, it seems like there's no place for the straight white guy anymore. So, but of course there is, right? There is, but we have to get it in our head that it's time to step back so that others can step forward. And it's not even really a question of, it's not even about stepping back. It's probably just take 2 steps to the side so that we can all stand shoulder to shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Because it is a big task, and it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take these when it comes to addressing our racial concerns, it's going to take white allies, and it's going to take white allies who don't mind paying extra taxes, which is the other thing. While I was watching the defund the police movement, and I don't, I've been kind of pondering that. Okay. So, you need to have law and order because, you do have that segment of society, regardless of race, the criminal element that's going to take advantage of anything.
Absolutely.
Right. But then I got to thinking about how conservatives have been defunding government since Ronald Reagan.
They have, yes.
And just trying to starve the beast. And I
kind of think it's just the wrong word. Like, instead of defund the police, it should be redistribute the work the police do. But that doesn't,
reprioritize. Yes, that's fine.
Well, conservatives don't like redistribution either. That's what taxation is.
Well, that's why they conserve.
Right. But I do think this idea of trickle down and small government, and government's the problem, not the solution, And so we're going to cut as our population has almost doubled since the Reagan years. Right. So I just think our government, except we seem to always find money to kill foreigners,
right,
and for weapon systems and for everything else, but looking after our own, and then we keep shoving it on our kids and our probably now our great grandchildren, just because everybody wants what they want, but nobody wants to pay for it, and that's a consciousness thing.
That is.
Right.
And Tupac said, we got money for wars, but can't feed the poor.
Right.
So, I mean, that spoke exactly what Reverend Mike was saying.
Yeah.
You were saying.
I mean, just take this one. So you take all the dough that was blown in Iraq, right? And what if we'd have just airlifted and dropped food?
Yeah.
Right. That had from USA. And the money that would go along with that, and the defensive efforts to support all that, but just dropped food on everybody.
Yeah.
Bombs, and just really won the hearts of the people.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have happened. I mean, we had the whole neocon movement and the American century, and this is blah blah blah.
Arab Spring,
right? All that stuff that we thought we were going to be able to, which never made any sense to me, right?
Right.
You have a conservative culture part, so we never dealt with the issue of why a group of people thought flying an airplane into a building was a good idea to begin with.
Yeah.
We still haven't answered that.
Right.
Well, worse.
Yeah.
Right. So that's also a consciousness thing.
Right.
Yeah. And to add on to that, Rev, I mean, American, maybe not so much the people is a little bit broad, but I would say the powers of America, we get off on our relations with dictators. So part of the reason why Iraq is in the condition that it's in, much of the third world is in the condition that it's in, mainly in Africa and things like that, is we install these political despots, in place that are like puppeteers to Western friendly interests. And it allows the United States to siphon all the natural resources. John Perkins, the author, he wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman. He detailed this specifically, in every single war, showing how this model has taken effect on every single continent where you have United States hands, all of it. So that there's no accident why the United States has, military bases in over 130 countries, while we have 7 fleets in every body of water throughout this planet. I was told a long time ago, America doesn't fight for freedom; they fight for things.
Interesting. Well, so, like the British Empire would have come in with their armies to and sort of just take over countries, and now America does it through commercialism, through media. Actually, is one of the ways, and through this sort of less obvious chess playing, manipulating the pieces.
And you need a boogeyman, right? I mean, so when Vietnam was fought, the boogeyman was communism. I'm like, but hell, you had a Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba. It was 90 miles from your shore. Okay, if you're gonna fight communism, why not fight there? Why you need to go 8,000 miles across an ocean to fight it? You see, and when 20 years after the fall of Saigon, Bill Clinton lifts sanctions against Vietnam, right? And so when I was a kid, I used to see items and clothing made in China. Then post 95, after Clinton lifts the sanctions in Vietnam, now all of a sudden you see items that are made in Vietnam. You see suit jackets made in Vietnam. You see shoes made in Vietnam. Why? Because now if you go to Vietnam today, you see Coca-Cola, you see Ford, you see all these thriving American brands. And there was a commercial that I seen on CNN that had this whole conglomerate that they have over there, to where they made Vietnam look like Dubai. And you looking at what waste that America left it in when they left in 75, and to what it is now. I mean, now it is, like I said, it's like Dubai again.
So what I'm hearing, when I'm trying to bring it, sorry, Rev, I was trying to bring it back to consciousness.
Yeah. Sure. Well, we did do a pretty good job helping Germany and Japan rebuild.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, so there is that part of it. And I don't, I'm certainly not some kind of Marxist in my beliefs. But I think what we're all talking about is a need to shift away to shift our model, or at least the intensity with which it's being practiced, because we have a huge project ahead of us, and race, making things right with race relations, and which is not going to happen overnight, right? That's going to need to be probably a 10 or 15 or 20 year plan, a strategic plan.
I agree.
The same with climate, and the same with repairing. I mean, if we can get off our dependency on fossil fuel, then the Middle East thing just kind of takes care of itself, right?
Yeah.
So
consciousness wise, it's like, do we stick with the human condition that has been doing these cycles for eternity of power and conquering and using whatever means, whether it's the church to control people or the media or commercialism? Or do we want to, all of us or most of us, evolve and see how we could do all of it better and together and with peace? And like, I'm always confused why progressives want that, because they want progress, they want to move forward, and conservatives seem to want to stay because they know it's safe, just the mindset. But wouldn't you want to be safe and happier or more free? But it seems to scare them to move.
Well, if you have enough for your little group, right?
Yeah, so then why rock the boat?
For my generation, maybe a couple of other, maybe 2 generations down. So it's going to be a very interesting project, and it's going to. And I don't know what the answer is, except, we use the word consciousness. Certainly, we're going to need a national vision that we can all think into and get behind. That's bigger than the differences and the squabbles that we get into.
Sure.
And also to acknowledge that we will get into them, right?
Because we're still people.
Yeah, difficult conversations.
Right.
That's one of the things I wanted to bring up earlier, the series on YouTube, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Emmanuel Acho, NFL player. The 2 most recent ones were with the police, talking about defund the police, and he talked to the Petaluma Police Department. They only have 1% Black population in their area, but he said the discussion is preventative more than, a cure after the fact. And it was really interesting to hear the police officer say, now that we understand what is meant by defund the police, if others want to come and help us with the mentally ill and, you know, take care of those people so that we can do the protective part and they do the working with them, we are open to it. We would be happy to accept the help.
That's great.
Yeah. And then they had Chelsea Handler on to represent Karens and talk about the cancel culture. Yes. And she's kind of loud and inappropriate in general and funny and smart. And so she had said how she looked at her privilege and really, I'm trying to remember, somewhere in the conversation, something came up that she said that I thought was really smart. And now I can't remember it. But I recommend watching that whole series. But
will do.
Yeah, certainly the more recent.
Did you see Chappelle on Saturday Night Live?
Oh, I haven't watched it yet.
That was awesome.
Good?
Yeah, I did. Won't spoil it. Yeah, but it was good.
I thought
he was in rare form.
Yeah, and he was taking folks to task. And
cool.
It was hilarious, and some of the funniest parts is when his joke, which really wasn't a joke, it just got real quiet.
Yes.
Yeah.
That uncomfortable quietness. Absolutely.
I got to check that out. I did finish watching Lovecraft Country, talking about horror. Have you watched any of it yet, Salaam?
I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it.
It's in the queue.
Yes, I had a friend of mine that he said, "Well, stick to it through the end. You will not be disappointed." So
yeah,
definitely.
So I think it was the next to last episode, the penultimate episode. They go back to Tulsa, 1921, was
it? Yes.
And they put you in the middle of what happened.
Wow.
And, you know, like until the Black Lives Matter movement, I didn't know that there were communities in the USA that were completely Black. I didn't know about Tulsa. I didn't know about, what's the one in Florida?
Rosewood.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the movie I told you that was that John Singleton did in '97. Yes.
So
Ving Rhames is in it.
Right. I didn't know about those. And so now to see, you know, a depiction of these prosperous, happy, peaceful communities, and then people who just didn't want to see Black people be prosperous and peaceful and happy.
Autonomous. Yes. Like, well, you don't even have to go back that far. Like I mentioned before, Philadelphia in 1985. Yeah. You know, the Move, if you Google Move, you'll see it. They literally bombed, you know, and killed men, women, and children. You know,
I just don't get it. And I'm grateful I don't get it, but it just seems so like, what is the point? Because I am a progressive, so to see destruction of any sort really is, you know, like book burning or something. It really upsets me. Or like when, you know, in the Middle East, there were these ancient Buddha statues and they blew them up rather than letting another country take them. Sri Lanka wanted to take them as a Buddhist country. Sri Lanka wanted those Buddha statues preserved.
Wow.
And they decided to blow them up instead. So that destruction bothers me in general, but why kill a bunch of people who are peaceful and happy? Leave them alone.
But that's not how power works. You know?
That's true.
And power is like it's an illicit drug. You know that it controls and it influences your every impulse. You know that you have, it becomes magnified. You know, to the other person who you're trying to exploit.
That's what Chelsea Handler said. She said it's not a zero-sum game.
Yes.
You don't have to give up something to let somebody else have theirs, to have some. Yeah. And that's the thing. You shouldn't have to destroy somebody who has something just because you're mad they have it. It costs you nothing to let them have their piece.
It costs you nothing at all. No skin off your back.
Yeah. Why are people so messed up?
Tell me about it.
The human condition. Yeah.
All
right. So now fix it all, Rev. Right now. We got 10 minutes. Wrap it up.
Power component. I mean, just to kind of take it back to where, Salaam kind of hit on half dozen points there in his opening remarks, but it is the power thing, and it is a drug, and it's so I know in Indian philosophy, you go through the various stages. Of course, they believe in reincarnation, but
sure,
power is supposed to be the last realm, and in the power is different things in different scenarios. So for adolescent boys, power is being bigger than everyone else.
Right.
Sometimes it can be smarter if you have a wicked tongue, but usually it's bigger. But when we get older, it's usually the wealth. It's wealth. Wealth is behind the power, and power behind the wealth. And so we have to figure a way to solve that riddle, because the truth is that wealthy people are also wealthy because they're really smart. Also, right? Yeah. And they're innovative. Many are innovators. Many, I mean, they have a shark in them. There's no doubt about that. But so we don't want to vilify or villainize, whatever the word is, anyone, because it's going to take all of us. And I think so, to persuade by saying, here's some good value for you. Yeah. So you're going to give us an extra 3%. And you, Mr. Corporation, you're going to have a minimum tax of X. And I don't know how you figure all this out. But the one thing that I do know is that the things that we're talking about are going to take a lot of resources in the form of money, which we really can't do anything about. But as far as our mental capital, our spiritual practice capital, each within our own traditions, that we can certainly do something about.
Sure.
And particularly about keeping things stoked while the technocrats figure out how to pull this and that to get it to work. So we live in an interesting time, even with the kind of built-in braking system that's in there with the Senate, and the Republicans are going to kind of do their thing, just because they feel like they need to, and maybe they do, right? Just as Democrats are going to need to find a way to keep the progressives patient.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's going to take someone a lot smarter than I am. I just keep doing the prayer work every day and just knowing that somehow.
Yeah.
It's a tall order. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think Dr. King was right when he said, the arc of mankind does bend. I think it really does bend towards justice.
Towards justice, yes.
But, it'd be nice to get rid of the sine wave.
Right.
Right. Kind of smooth.
I think Joe Biden even used that quote in his speech. The arc of the moral universe bends towards justice.
Yes.
Right. But 400 years is long enough too.
Absolutely.
Right. So anyway, we just sorted everything out. I hope they're listening.
We did.
And you
Done.
have a math assignment also, folks, for you out there to draw
Right.
a sine wave and draw a cosine wave and give us
Oh,
a mathematical representation.
now we need to get you a whiteboard or something
There
behind
you
you,
go.
Salaam, so
I
you
do
can
not know what a cosine wave looks like. Is that this way, vertical?
Yeah, sine wave, it starts at the midpoint of the axis and it peaks up, it goes like that.
Right.
Cosine wave, it starts at 1 and makes like a bell curve.
Oh, okay.
Ah, cool.
The things you learn on Thoughts on Talks.
That's right. Full service. We got math. We've got some language, culture, politics,
A little hip hop in there, pop culture.
horror. Yeah, we got it all. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Those of you who dared to stick with us this long, and keep tuning in to our CSLGH YouTube channel. Okay, what's your question?
So I heard a rumor that Reverend John Robinson might join us.
John Washington?
Washington.
Washington.
I'm thinking of the basketball coach.
He himself hath not confirmed this rumor that he has been invited. He is from the Unity of Chatsworth Center.
I'll reach out.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So yeah, he keeps kind of sort of, he answers part of an email, but not the whole thing. I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but he did give us some praise and promotion at the recent Unity Southwest Region Conference. So hopefully we will see Reverend John Washington.
We'll get Reverend John on here. We'll let him the Reverend voice, and I'll watch.
That'd be super. And Saturday, a few buddies of mine, we're gonna be doing a Facebook Live called Bruh's Breaking Bread, and one of my guys in St. Louis, he reached out to a Black St. Louis police officer, so he's gonna come online and share his perspective. So I'm sure it should be 5:00 Pacific.
Okay.
5:00.
So people should just find you on Facebook and follow you.
Yeah, because I'll be tagged on there, so you'll be able to see me on there. And for my guys from all over the country, one of them is from back in Chicago too. So
cool. All right, great. So just keep in touch with us. And say that again.
Repeat that one more time.
Can't get away from those Chicago guys.
Not at all. We're all over.
All right. So thanks for watching, and join us next time on Thoughts on Talks. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.